audible? Anyone, please?
Yes, sir.
Audible, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just wait. I am putting on device. Then please respond. Now I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you are not audible now.
Hello. Now am I audible?
Yes, sir. Now audible.
Okay. So now let's see that I have already told you that nowadays the software development is moving towards this designing a little, coding a little, and testing a little instead of designing the whole thing or coding the whole thing or testing a whole thing. The distance between object-oriented specification and the implementation is very much small as compared to the conventional systems. The gap between white box testing and black box testing nowadays it is diminished. Therefore, there is very lower importance on code-based testing. All people they are migrating towards this model-based testing. Model-based testing has assumed of high importance. People are all migrating towards model-based testing. This model-based testing, since it is lies in between white box and black box, so that's why this is also known as gray box testing. But still, the conventional white box testing techniques they can be used for testing individual methods. Okay. So with this, now let's see this model-based testing in detail. I have already told you in model-based testing we are using normally the design models for software testing. What could be the design models? The design models could be the data flow diagrams, could be the UML diagrams. From these diagrams, how you can design test cases. So since we are discussing object-oriented software testing, you know that UML diagrams are used for designing object-oriented software. So now let's see how object-oriented software, they can be tested using the UML diagrams. Okay. So testing based on UML models. You know that nowadays UML has become the de facto standard for modeling and designing of object-oriented software. Even if though UML is intended to produce rigorous models, it has some limitations, such as it does incorporate many inflexibilities. It may result in incomplete, inconsistent, and ambiguous models. So these are some of the few limitations of UML diagrams. Still, then the UML diagrams are an important source of information for test design. From the UML diagrams, we can get so much information which can be used for designing test cases for object-oriented software. That's why even if these two minor limitations, people are nowadays migrating towards testing object-oriented software using UML diagrams. Now let's see what are the different approaches or testing approaches for UML or for UML based designs. What are the different testing approaches which are based on UML diagrams or UML designs? There are two approaches which are based on maybe the UML diagrams. These two approaches are as follows. One is based on the generic test strategy. Another is based on the test design pattern. So in the first approach, we interpret the generic test strategy to develop the test suite, and in second approach, we apply the related test design patterns. Just like you have known in design, you have known different patterns such as facade pattern, proxy pattern, expert pattern. Those who have studied software engineering in this software design, they are using these different kinds of patterns. So similarly, these in case of testing, we call them as test design patterns. These test design patterns can be used for software testing. So we'll see first the first approach. If time will permit, we'll see the second approach. So we'll see the first approach. That means the development of test suite by interpreting the generic test strategy. So here I will try to see how the different UML diagrams they can be used, how the generic test strategy can be what proposed, can be what designed for different UML diagrams. We'll start with the, you know that in UML 1.x there are 9 UML diagrams. What are they? Very often our students are weak in UML diagrams. The UML 1.x diagrams are use case diagram, class diagram, then comes activity diagram, state chart diagram, then for behavioral models such as activity diagram, state diagram, we have seen sequence diagram, then your collaboration diagram, then comes object diagram, then your component diagram, and then deployment diagram. These are the 9 UML diagrams used in 1.x, and in UML 2.x 5 more new diagrams are used, such as the profile diagram, interaction overview diagram, timing diagram, etc. 5 new UML diagrams are used into UML 2.x. So we'll see a few of them, and the rest of the things you can see yourself. I will cover few UML diagrams and what will the generic strategy for the software testing, that will explain. Others you can read yourself. We'll start with use case diagram. So let's see how use case based testing can be performed for some object-oriented software. That means how the UML diagrams they can be used for testing of object-oriented software. So normally, you know that what do the use cases represent? The use cases they roughly capture the system level requirement, isn't it? Because in the use case diagram we represent what the use cases. What are the functionalities? So what do they represent? They represent the system level requirement. So use case means simply they are high level functional requirements. So use cases roughly they capture system level requirements. So then in a complete system, how you can represent a complete system or the complete functionality of the system? You have to take a collection of use cases. So a collection of use cases, it defines the complete functionality of the system. Please take the example of library information system. How I can represent the complete functionality of the library information system? I have to take the different use cases. What are the use cases? Issue book, return book, reserve book, check availability, compute file, add book, delete book, add member, delete member, etc., etc., etc. So these are the different use cases. If you take the collection of these use cases, you can completely specify the functionality of the system. Similarly, you take the example of ATM system or banking information system. How you can represent the complete functionality? Again, by taking a set of use cases: withdraw money, deposit money, transfer money, check balance, like that. So these are the different use cases by using which you can completely represent the functionality of the banking information system or ATM information system. So this use case, how does it consist of? Each use case consists of a mainline scenario and several alternate scenarios. See, I do not have time to teach you all the UML diagrams. Those who have not read the UML diagrams, please refer any software engineering book such as Rajimol's book or your Pressman book, anything else. Please read yourself. We do not have time to go to that. I assume that you know design. So how an use case consists of? A use case consists of 2 scenarios. One we call mainline scenario and 2 alternate scenario. What is the mainline scenario? Mainline scenario means if everything is going correctly, starting from entering the correct input, getting the correct output, that we call mainline scenario. Alternate scenario, at every point there might be some deviation, and that leads to an alternate scenario. We can take the small example of banking or ATM information system. You are going to the bank, or the ATM, what you are doing? You are starting from inserting the card, then insert the pin, etc. And what is the end output? You are getting the money and the printout. So this, if you are correctly getting the cash dispensed from the ATM and the receipt, then we call that this is the mainline scenario. What are the alternate scenarios? You have inserted the ATM, you have suppose wrongly inserted, so message will come wrongly inserted. One alternate scenario. Another is you have inserted properly, but PIN is wrong. Another alternate scenario. Another PIN is wrong, PIN is right, but you don't have sufficient balance in the account. Another alternate scenario. Another is you are having sufficient balance, but you are entering wrong amount, 405 rupees, like this. So these are all alternate scenarios. So each use case consists of a mainline scenario and several alternate scenarios. So this now I have told the mainline scenario for use case withdraw money. That means starting from entering the ATM till getting the cash, it is a mainline sequence for withdraw use case. And the alternate scenarios I have told, these are the alternate scenarios for which use case? For withdraw use case. For each use case, the mainline and the alternate scenarios are tested to check if any error shows. Now we'll come to the testing point. If we are having an use case diagram consisting of the mainline scenario and alternate scenarios, how to test the software? So we have to design the test case in such a way that the mainline scenario and each alternate scenarios will be executed at least once. You should not say that I have tested only the mainline scenario. That means starting from entering the ATM, getting this money. If that is successful, don't say that my system is working successful. You have to test. You have to generate test cases for the mainline scenario as well as each and every alternate scenario. Because we do not know, in some alternate scenario, it might giving correct result. In some cases, it is not giving the error message. If the error message is not there, that means even if your PIN is wrong, you are getting the money, so some problem definitely. And these are very sensitive issues. Okay, somebody has given an PIN with an alphabet and still money is dispensed. That means some problem in your software. So that's why for each use case, you have to test the mainline sequence as well as the alternate sequence. For each use case, the mainline and all alternate scenarios are tested to check if any error show up. So in this way, by using the use case diagram, we can test the object-oriented software. Let's see in detail. So now we are discussing what? See, we are discussing how to develop test suite by interpreting the generic test strategy. What will the generic test strategy? So this is the generic test strategy I have told. For each use case, the mainline and all alternate scenarios, they are tested to check whether or if any errors show up. Several general kinds of tests can be derived from the use cases. Let's see. I have already told you two important sequences, mainline sequence and alternate sequence. So just like we have seen the different coverages, such as statement coverage, branch coverage, path coverage, etc. Here also we can define a coverage called as scenario coverage. That means we should design test case in such a way that the mainline scenario will be covered at least once, as well as each alternate scenario should be covered at least once. Let's see these two kinds of scenario coverages. Number one, the test cases for basic courses. That means if everything goes on correctly, then we call them that test cases for basic coverages. We have to design test cases for the basic courses. That is the expected flow of events. This is known as mainline sequence. If whatever is expected, we are getting. Then we call that mainline sequence. You have to design test cases for these basic courses. Then we have to design test cases for other courses. Other courses means all the alternate scenarios. So besides this expected flow of events, all other flows of events also you have to test them. Also you have to design test cases for them. That means you have to design test cases for alternate sequences. And the examples I have already given, that starting from ATM card inserted wrong, PIN wrong, the input amount is wrong, like that. These are all alternate sequences. You have to design test cases for them. Also, test cases for the features described in user documentation traceable to each use case can be generated from use cases. So what additionally you can do? Also, the test cases for the features described in the user documentation. In the user documentation or in the user documents. In the user documents, whatever features are mentioned, so you have to test them by designing some test cases. Also, test cases for the features described in user documentation traceable to each use case can be generated from use cases. So now let's see what are the generic test requirements if you are using use case diagram for testing your object-oriented software. The generic test requirements includes followings. You have to generate test cases in such a way that at least one test case should exercise the following. Okay. You have to design test cases in such a way that at least one test case should exercise the following. So this completely requires understanding of use case diagram. As I already told you, are running out of time. I cannot teach how to draw use case diagram. So please read this, how use case diagrams are drawn. What are the specific features? Those who have read use case diagram, you might have read the features. They are extends, includes, uses. These are various stereotypes. These are various features of what use case diagram. So please have a look. I cannot go back. So we have to design the test case in such a way that at least one test case should exercise the following. That is, every use case when actor communicates with use case. So we have to design at least one test case for every use case. There can be 10 use cases. There can be any use cases. So we should design at least one test case for every use case whenever actor communicates with the use case. So every use case, for every use case, you have to design test cases. Okay. So at least one test case we should design for every use case when actor communicates with the use case. Similarly, what are the specific features such as extends, uses, includes? So they must be also tested at least once. Every extension combination such as use case 1 extends use case 2 that needs to be tested. Similarly, every uses combination or includes combination such as use case 1 uses use case 2 or use case 1 includes use case 2 that must be tested. So here, three important things I am saying. We have to design at least one test case for every use case whenever actor communicates with the use case. We should design at least one test case for every extension combination. For example, use case 1 extends use case 2. How many extents are there? We have to test each of them individually. Similarly, we must have to design test cases for every uses combination or includes combination. For example, use case 1 uses use case 2 or use case 1 includes use case 2. We have to design test cases for testing these features. So now let's quickly see the next diagram, that is class diagram. How you can use class diagram for testing. So class diagram, what does class diagram does? These are again fundamental things. The class diagram normally it documents the structure of a system. How does the system is structured? That will be represented by a class diagram. This is a static diagram. Class diagram is a static diagram. Whereas those who have studied sequence diagram, collaboration diagram, these are examples of dynamic diagrams. They represent the dynamic aspects of the system. So class diagram, it documents the structure of a system. It represents what? It represents the entities and their interrelations. Okay. So class diagram represents what? The different entities present in the system and their interrelationship. So now how to design test cases? Now let's see testing derived classes. Suppose from class B is derived. How to test it? Testing the derived classes. All derived classes have to be instantiated and tested. Last class I have already told you. Even if so, suppose B is derived from A, you have already tested A, all the methods present in A, and by default, since it is derived, all the methods of A are inherited into B. But you cannot say that I have designed all the methods at A and at a higher level, I should not test them again at B. No, because the context of use may be different for the methods. The methods defined in A, their context of use may be different for those methods in B. So all the derived classes, they have to be instantiated and tested. Please remember that is a rule, not an exception. All derived classes, they have to be instantiated and tested. In addition to the new methods defined in the derived classes, the inherited methods must be retested. This I am saying repeatedly. Okay, so whatever new will be, they have to be tested. But whatever inherited from A, they have to be again retested. Now let's see the generic test requirements. The test cases should also exercise the following. You might have known different types of relationships in a class diagram. What is a class diagram? Class diagram is the what? It represents the relationship between different classes present in this system, and those classes are represented. How? We have to represent the relationships among the classes. Now, the relationships among the classes could be generalization, association, aggregation, composition, dependency, etc. Please see any book. These are the different relations. So, in a class diagram, what could be possible relations? Generalize. What are the possible relationships among the classes? Generalization, aggregation, association, dependency, etc. So, what then you should do? You should design test cases to test each of the relationships, such as if any association relationship is there, that needs to be tested. If there is some aggregation relationship, you have to design test cases to test them. If there is some generalization relationship, you have to design test cases to test that relationship. So you must have to design test cases to test each and every possible relationships present in a class diagram. So this is the generic test requirement. You have to design test cases for each and every relationship present in the class diagram among the different classes. The test cases should also exercise what? Each association relation, that is called as association testing, association relation present among the classes. You should also test the different aggregation relations. What is the aggregation relation? So independent creation and destruction of the objects, container and components in an aggregation relation. See, this you cannot understand if you cannot understand this, what is aggregation relation. Then only you can understand aggregation testing. I am quickly taking a small example. Suppose you are having a book as a class, and how does a book consist of? A book consists of several pages. So here what is the book is the container object, and what are the components? Pages are the components. Similarly, a page consists of what? Several paras. So page is the container container object, and para are the components. Each paragraph consists of what? Several lines. So paragraph now become container, and your lines become the component. Similarly, each line consists of several words. Each word can consist of several characters. So this is an example of aggregation relationship. That means one object is the container object, and the other object is a component object. The components are present in the container objects. So if this is the case, this is called as aggregation testing. So what you have to do? You have to design test cases for aggregation testing. Then what you have to do here? You have to first independent. You have to perform independent creation and destruction of these objects. What could be the possible objects? Container objects and components in an aggregation relation. So in this way, you can test the aggregation relation present in a class diagram. This is another generic test requirement. Similarly, you can design test cases for the generalization relationship, for the dependency relationship. Now let's see how to test the relations among the classes. The relations among the classes, I have already told you, they are inheritance, association, composition, dependency, generalization, etc. Each relationship has the corresponding generic test requirement. Let's take a simple example. I have already told you one relation is generalization relation. Generalization relation means, for example, I am giving you are making your library fees paid, or you are making your institute fees you want to pay. So here pay is a class, and it is we can say that it's a generalized class. How you can pay? You can pay through cash, you can pay through credit card, you can pay through internet banking, you can pay through debit card, etc. So here pay the relationship is like this: pay the class, parent class, and the children class are maybe pay through cash, pay through ATM, pay through debit card, pay through credit card, pay through internet bank, etc. So these are all children classes. The relationship between pay and pay through cash, pay through the credit card, pay through debit card, these are all examples of generalization relationship. Each relationship has corresponding generic test requirements. For example, if you are considering a generalization relation, for example, the relationship between pay and pay through cash, this is a generalization relationship. For example, a generalization relationship, suppose it requires that it should not be reflexive, symmetric, but it should be transitive. I hope you must have read relationships in discrete mathematics or in some mathematics other papers. Like a relation is reflexive, symmetric, transitive, the equivalence relation, partial ordering relation you have already known. So now suppose I want to test this thing. That for example, a generalization relation it is not reflexive and it is not symmetric, but it is transitive. So then you have to design the test cases in such a way that the test cases should be designed in such a way that it should not be reflexive, it should not be symmetric, but it should be transitive. So in this way, every relationship has its corresponding generic test requirement. Okay, so now some problem. Okay. Oh, just 1 minute, please. I hope now it is visible. Yes. So as I was saying, each relationship has its corresponding generic test requirements. For example, a generalized relation is not reflexive, not symmetric, but it is transitive. So those kinds of generic test requirements you have to test. For any relation, we can ask. So because see, for example, here we have told that a generalized relation is not reflexive and not symmetric, but it is transitive. Now what we have to do, for any relation we can ask which of the three properties is required, excluded or relevant. So suppose if a generalized relation it should be reflexive, symmetric and transitive, then what we should ask? For any relation we can ask which of these three properties, whether reflexive, symmetric and transitive, which one will be required, which one will be excluded, or which one is irrelevant. For this generalization, you can see that we should design test cases in such a way that this reflexive property it is not required, symmetric property it is not required, but transitive property is required. The answers they lead to a simple test case, but it is a very effective test. Case. For example, when reflexibility is excluded, then what do you mean by, when you say that relation is reflexive, that X is related to itself, then we call that the reflexive relationship. For example, when the reflexivity is excluded, any value X that would make X reflexive, X is related to itself, it's true, that should be rejected, isn't it? We want that reflexivity is excluded. It should be excluded. We do not require reflexivity. The reflexivity is not satisfied. Then how to design the test cases? For example, when reflexivity is excluded, that means any value or any variable X that would make X or X, that means that variable is related to itself. It is true. It must be rejected because the relationship is not reflexive. Now let's quickly take a small example. Suppose you are taking a library information system. What are the different classes or the objects? Student, department library, etc. So suppose student is the relationship is member of. Suppose student is a member of the department library, and department library is a part of the department. Of course, department library is a part of department. This is another class or object. Then the relation is member of is not reflexive, isn't it? That student is a member. we cannot, what is it? Reflexive say that x are x. That means the what variable is related to itself. So student is a member. How the student is itself, it is related to itself. So this relation is member of is not reflexive. It is also not symmetric because student is a member of department library. That doesn't say that department library is a member of student, but it is transitive because a student is a member of department and a student is a member of department library and department library is a part of department, then obviously the student is a part of the department. So hence the relation, it is not reflexive, it is not symmetric, but it is transitive. So these types of relationships must be tested. So these types of so this type of relationship should be tested by designing appropriate test cases such that these relationships such as reflexive, symmetric or transitivity, they should be tested properly. Now we should quickly go for the next model, that is state model based testing. So here what the diagram we can use, state chart diagram we can use. You know, in UML 2.0 the state chart diagrams are known as state machines. Now we have already taken one or two class in the initial classes while discussing black box testing using the state chart diagrams, that is the FSM, finite state machines. So state charts or finite state machines, they can be used to represent what? To represent the state behavior, the state-based behavior of a class or a system or a subsystem. The state chart model or the finite state machine, it provides most of the information which are necessary for class level state-based testing. The concept of control flow of a conventional program does not map readily to an object-oriented program. You take a small conventional program may be written in C. The control flow is very much obvious, isn't it? But when you take an object-oriented program, so many classes, so many methods, the control flow is not obvious as in case of the conventional program. That's what I'm saying. The concept of control flow of a conventional program, it does not map readily to an object-oriented program. In a state model, we specify how the object state would change under certain conditions. So in a state chart diagram or in a finite state machine, what do? We specify how the object state, it would change under certain conditions. When some condition will occur, how the state will change. For example, in banking system, the account has several states. I have already told you: initial state, new state, initial state, working state, idle state, dead state. So when how the state can be moved from working to idle, if no transactions, then it will be no transactions for 1 year, then it will be moving from working to idle. But if still idle to working, you can move. How? If you will go to the bank, take the approval, make it activate, then the state will again change from idle to active or working. How the state change will go from working state to dead state? You go to the bank, say that I want to close my account, take the approval, then the state will change from working state to dead state. So in this way, in a state model, we can specify how the object states would change under certain different conditions. So then how to what to do in the state model based testing? As I have already told you, in traditional programs, the control flow is very obvious. This is not very it is not it is not same as in object-oriented program. The concept of control flow of a conventional program, it does not map readily to an object-oriented program. The flow of control in object-oriented programs, then how does the flow of control occur? How do the how does the flow of control occur in object-oriented programs? You know, through message passing. So through message passing from one object to another project, the flow of control in object-oriented programs occurs. So this message passing, it causes the receiving object to perform some operation which can lead to an alteration of state, isn't it? When the message is passed, it causes the receiving object, that means the object who receives that message, to perform some operation, and this can lead to an alteration of its state, isn't it? Due to message passing, the receiving object, it will perform certain operation and its state will be altered or changed. For state chart diagram, just as I have told, for use case diagrams, one new coverage we have seen scenario based coverage. How many possible scenarios? What are the total number of scenarios? How many scenarios you are covering? So similarly, in state coverage, in state based, if you are performing objective testing using state chart diagrams, one coverage is known as state coverage. Other coverages we will see shortly. So state coverage means what? Each method of an object is tested at each state of the object. An object can have n number of what states. So each method of an object, it has to be tested at each state of the object. An object might have passed how many states? Each method of that object has to be tested at each state of the object. For example, if the account object you are taking, whatever the method such as deposit, withdraw, etc., all those methods have to be tested at each state of the account object such as new, initial, working, idle and dead states, etc. Okay, this is what is meant by state coverage. That means you have to design test cases in such a way that each and every state of that object has to be covered, has to be executed at least once. This is what is known as state coverage. Very much important. The state model, it defines the allowable transitions at each state. At each state, all the transitions are not allowed. Please recall while we are discussing FSM, I have made a table. So at each state, some of the transitions are allowed. The state model, it defines the allowable transitions at each state. The states can be constructed how? The states can be constructed by using equivalence classes defined on the instance of variables. So equivalence partitioning, etc., we have already discussed earlier. The states can be constructed using the equivalence classes which are defined on the instance variables. So here one of the important statement of Jacobson, it comes. Jacobson's object-oriented software engineering, it advocates that design test cases in such a way that it should cover all state transitions. That means you should design the test cases in such a way that if you are using state chart diagram, it should cover all the state transitions at least once. So please first read what is a state chart diagram, then there the concept of event, states, transitions are there. Please read them again. Jacobson's object-oriented engineering, object-oriented software engineering advocates design test cases to cover all state transitions at least once. The state model-based testing here, one coverage I have already told you, state coverage. Two other coverages are like this: state transition coverage, another is state transition path coverage. So state transition coverage says that it is tested whether all the possible transitions depicted in this state model work satisfactorily or not. Okay, so state transition coverage means how many state transitions are there in your state chart diagram. You have to design test cases in such a way that all the transitions represented in the state chart diagram, they are working satisfactorily. What do you mean by state transition path coverage? So this is a coverage which represents that all transition paths in the state model are tested at least once. So state transition path coverage means you have to design test cases. You have to design test cases in such a way that this is particularly for state chart diagram. If you are designing, if you are testing your software using state chart diagram or binary state message, you have to design test cases in such a way that all the paths in the state model are tested at least once, they are covered at least once. This is something known as state transition path coverage. The test cases can be derived from the state machine model of a class. Okay, the test cases can be derived from the state chart diagram or state machine model of a class. Here the methods result in state transitions. You know how the state transition will occur due to invocation of some method. So methods result in state transitions. Test cases are designed to exercise each transition at a state. We have to design the test cases in such a way that each and every transition at a state, they are covered at least once. Test cases are designed to exercise each transition at a state. However, the transitions are tied closely to user selectively activation sequences, that is all use cases. So normally, So normally the transitions, they are tied up to what? They are tied to the user selective activation sequences. That means the use cases. However, the transitions are tied to user selective activation sequences, use cases. What are the difficulties with state model based testing? The locus of state control is distributed over an entire object oriented application. I have already told you. In traditional system, this control flow is very obvious, but in object oriented system, the locus of the state control, it is not centralized. It is completely distributed over the entire object oriented application. The locus of state control is distributed over an entire object oriented application. So cooperative control makes it difficult to achieve the system state and transition coverage. A global state model becomes too complex for practical system. If you will say that you will go for another part solution like constructing a global state model, it is also having its own disadvantage. A global state model becomes too complex for practical systems. That's why it is very rarely constructed by developers. A global state model is needed to show how classes interact. Why do we require a global state model? The global state model is needed to show how the classes interact. Now let's quickly take another 5-10 minutes on maybe an activity diagram and this some other diagram. You know that activity diagrams. Otherwise, please see any book on software engineering to read what is an activity diagram. Now let's see activity diagram by testing, how testing can be performed using activity diagrams. You know that activity diagrams, they are based on what? They are based on what? The flow charts, state transition diagrams, flow graphs, and Petri net. So activity diagrams are based on these types of diagrams. Activity diagrams, they can be considered to be a flow chart. So, but there's a difference. Activity diagrams not they're exactly same as flow chart. There's a difference. The activity diagram can be considered to be a flow chart that can represent two or more threads of concurrent execution. The most important difference between activity diagram and flow chart is that in flow chart you cannot perform parallel execution, but in activity diagram you can perform parallel execution. Those who have not learned, please try to learn itself. An important concept that is known as swim lanes in activity diagram. Swim lanes means how the parallel executions can be performed in activity diagrams. That is called as swim lanes. Activity diagram can be considered to be a flowchart, but the difference is that here in flowcharts, parallel execution not possible, cannot be represented, but in activity diagram, the parallel activities can be represented through swim lanes. Activity diagram can be considered to be a flowchart that can represent two or more threads of concurrent execution. Activity diagram supports all features of a basic flow graph. It can be used to develop test models for control flow based techniques. So one major difference I have told that parallel activities cannot be represented in flowchart, but they can be represented in activity diagrams. Activity diagram supports all the other features of a basic flow graph. It can be used to develop test models for control flow based techniques. The activity diagram can be used to construct what? Activity diagrams can be used to construct decision tables, composite control flow graph representing a collection of sequence diagrams, control flow graph at the method scope. This may be useful to analyze the path coverage. So this control flow graph at the method scope, this may be useful to analyze path coverage. We have already discussed how control flow graph CFG can be used for testing. White box testing, while we have discussed control flow graph, how control flow graph can be used for testing. There we can know the number of test cases required by using the McCabe's cyclomatic complexity. There we have discussed, you can please see that one. Control flow graphs at method scope, this thing or this may be useful to analyze the path coverage. Okay. Control flow graph at method scope, this may be useful to analyze the path coverage. Now let's quickly look at what are the generic test requirements if you are performing testing using activity diagrams. The generic test requirements are as follows. But again, I am saying before going to this, you must know what are the features of activity diagram, such as like synchronization, which activity follows after one activity, which activity precedes before one activity. Those things you must know so that you can find out the generic test requirement. So the generic test requirements for activity diagram based testing are as follows. we have to design at least one test case in such a way that the following will occur. At least one test case should exercise each different path. In an activity diagram, there are several paths because concurrent execution can be done. At least one test case should exercise each different path. For example, action 1 is followed by action 2, or activity 1 is followed by activity 2. Each such cases should be exercised by at least one test case. If there is a synchronization point, there are two important points, fork and join in activity diagrams. When multiple activities are joined at one point, we call a join. Similarly, when from one point multiple activities are emerging, we call that that is fork. When from one point multiple activities are emerging out, we call that fork. And when multiple activities are joined at a point, we call it join point, or perhaps that is also known as synchronization point. So we have to design test cases for these synchronous points. At least one test case should exercise each different path. For example, action or activity 1 is followed by action or activity 2. Synchronization point is followed by an action. Action is started after a signal is received. Synchronization point is reached after the action has occurred. Like that. What are the possibilities? You have to see, and for each possibility, you have to design at least one test case. Okay. These are the generic test requirements for activity diagram based testing. Now let's quickly look at this the sequence diagram based testing. A sequence diagram, you know what does it do? A sequence diagram, it documents the message exchanges in time and dimension. Those who have not read sequence diagram, please read again from any book. Now let's see what could be the generic test requirements for sequence diagram based testing. The generic test requirement is as follows. The generic test must include like message coverage, message path coverage, etc. What do you mean by that? Means we should generate test cases in such a way that each message should be covered at least once. We should generate or we should design test cases in such a way that each message path should be covered at least once. Okay, this is what is meant by message coverage and message path coverage. Message coverage means at least one test case should exercise each message, and message path coverage means all end-to-end message paths in the sequence diagram should be identified and exercised. Starting from the beginning of this message, it may go to several objects, and when it ends, when it comes back maybe to the originator, that will be a complete one path. We have to design at least one test case to cover all these message paths. In other words, we have to design the test cases so that each message path will be covered at least once. In other words, we have to design the test case in such a way that all end-to-end message paths in the sequence diagram should be identified and exercised at least once. So these are the generic test requirements for sequence diagram based testing. But there are some difficulties in sequence diagram based testing, such as representing complex control is very much difficult. How to represent the complex control is very much difficult. For example, notation for selection and iteration is clumsy because in UML 2.0 these options are there, selection, iteration. So even if to some extent UML 1.x it is also there. The notation for selection and iteration is becoming clumsy, so it is difficult to represent the complex control. It becomes difficult to determine whether all the possible scenarios are covered or not. So the different scenarios we have already seen in education diagram. So all those different scenarios have to be represented in the sequence diagrams. It becomes very much difficult to determine whether all scenarios are covered or not. Dynamic binding and the consequent superclass subclass behavior cannot be determined directly. I have already told you the problem of dynamic binding. So due to the presence of dynamic binding, it creates special problems in testing object-oriented software. Dynamic binding and the consequent superclass subclass behavior, they cannot be represented directly if you are using sequence diagrams for testing. So these are some of the difficulties in sequence diagram by testing. A sequence diagram, it shows what? Only a single collaboration. So normally when you are constructing a sequence diagram, the sequence diagram shows only a single collaboration. Different bindings are shown on separate sheets. If there are different bindings, they cannot be shown on a single sheet. Different bindings are shown on separate sheets. So these are some of the difficulties with sequence diagram by testing. So let's quickly look at this collaboration diagram testing. You know that sequence diagram and collaboration diagram, they are equivalent to each other. Why? Because if you have drawn the sequence diagram, if you have used any tool from the sequence diagram, you can automatically generate the collaboration diagram and vice versa. The details of sequence diagram and collaboration diagram, please read yourself. What do the collaboration diagrams represent? The collaboration diagrams, they represent the interactions among the objects. So in your system, how many objects are there? How do they collaborate? How do they interact? They can be represented using collaboration diagrams. So collaboration diagram, it represents the interactions among the objects. A collaboration diagram specifies the implementation of a use case. How you are going to implement the use case? How it is how the use case is implemented? It can be represented. It can be specified by your collaboration diagram. The collaboration diagram, it specifies the implementation of a use case. It may also depict the participants in the design patterns. What are the different participants in the design patterns? Collaboration diagram can also represent that. It may also depict the participants in the design patterns. So now let's see how you can perform testing using the collaboration diagrams. Each collaboration diagram represents only one slice of the interaction. Okay. So how many slices may be there? So you can represent one slice only by a collaboration diagram. Each collaboration diagram represents only one slice of the interaction. A composite collaboration diagram would be necessary to develop a complete test suite for an implementation. So if you want to develop a complete test suite for an implementation, you have to require not a single collaboration diagram. A composite collaboration diagram would be necessary. A composite collaboration diagram would be necessary to develop a complete test suite for an implementation. Now quickly let's look at what is the generic test requirement for the collaboration diagram based testing. Here the generic tests include many coverage. Here we will see one is message coverage, another is condition coverage. So what is message coverage? Message coverage means you have to design the test case in such a way that at least one test case should exercise each message. How many messages are there? At least one. Each message should be covered by at least one test case. Similarly, other coverages are there for a condition coverage. That means you should design test cases in such a way that each and every condition should be covered by at least one test case. Similarly, other coverages are there associated with the collaboration diagram. Please read yourself. So the generic tests include many coverages such as message coverage as condition coverage. Similarly, other coverages for collaboration diagram or communication diagram, you read yourself. So today we have discussed how to design test cases, how to perform testing using UML diagrams such as use case diagram, class diagram, activity diagram, structure diagram, sequence diagram, and collaboration diagram. Similarly, how testing can be performed using other UML diagrams, please read yourself, such as object diagram, deployment diagram, component implementation diagram, how you can design test cases using those diagrams, please read yourself. We are not having sufficient time, so how you can perform software testing, perform object-oriented software testing using the remaining types of UML diagrams such as deployment diagram, component diagram, implementation diagram, then your object diagram, timing diagram, interaction overview diagram, profile diagram, etc. Please read yourself. Okay. So this okay, I have addressed one more slide here, like how to perform component diagram based testing. So what do the component diagrams represent? Component diagrams, they show the dependency relationships among the different components, the physical containment of the components, and interfaces and calling components. So what is the basic testing practice? The basic testing practice here with respect to the component diagrams is all call paths should be identified and exercised. At least one. So how many call paths are there? All call paths, each and every call path should be identified and exercised by at least one test case. This is what is this is how you can perform component diagram based testing. And the last one is deployment diagram based testing. What do the deployment diagrams represent? Deployment diagrams, they represent the hardware, the software, and the network architecture, how they are interconnected, how they are combined. These are very much useful in integration planning. So when a component it runs on a single node, then test cases should exercise whether a component can be loaded and run on each designated host node or not. Okay. So what is the so now let's quickly see what is the deployment diagram when test testing here. How you can perform testing using deployment diagram. The idea is as follows: when a component runs on a node, what we should test? We should design the test cases as follows. The test cases should exercise whether a component it can be loaded and run on each designated host node or not. When a node communicates with another node, then what should do? How should test? When a node communicates with another node, we should design test cases in such a way that the test cases should exercise the different operations such as open, transmit, and close communication. These operations should be exercised for each remote component. Okay, this is how we can perform deployment diagram based testing. Thank you very much. So today we have seen how the different UML diagrams can be used for object-oriented software testing. What are the generic test? What are the generic testing strategies for these UML diagrams we have seen. Next class we will discuss about what are the special coverages for the testing of object-oriented software. Today we have seen some of the coverages like state coverage, message path coverage, etc. State transition coverage. These things we have seen. Next class we will see in detail what are the test coverages, new test coverages that are required for testing object-oriented software. So we'll stop here. Any doubt, please ask. Yes, so this is a little bit requires a prerequisite. You have to know that what are these different UML diagrams, what are their purposes, why they are constructed, then what are the specific features of these UML diagrams. Then only you can go for testing of object-oriented software using UML diagrams. Please read these UML diagrams from any software engineering book, then you take over this portion. Thank you very much.